Martin Hensley always thought his life would amount to nothing more than a series of delivery routes, a rotating cast of questionable roommates, and enough sarcasm to fill a minor lake. He was fine with it, comfortable even. He'd long ago accepted that his big life moments would be limited to things like winning free nachos at trivia night or finally fixing the leaky faucet in his apartment. Grand adventures? Alien royalty? Forget it. And yet, there he was, standing in the middle of an upscale auction house that looked like it had been plucked straight out of a Bond movie, holding a crumpled package of unknown origin in one hand and trying very hard not to panic. His audience consisted of 3 impeccably dressed bidders glaring at him like he'd spilled coffee on their priceless rugs, a receptionist who was clearly regretting letting him in, and, most distressingly, a tall, striking woman in an understated silver cloak who had been staring at him with unnerving intensity for the past 5 minutes. It all started that morning when
Martin's boss, a perpetually frazzled man named Jerry, threw an unmarked package into Martin's hands and barked, "You've got one more stop, and try not to embarrass the company this time, okay?" "I didn't embarrass anyone," Martin had replied, offended. The guy laughed. "Calling a billionaire's yacht a floating tax dodge isn't customer service, Martin," Jerry had snapped. "Accurate, though," Martin muttered under his breath, but he didn't press his luck. Jerry's patience with him was as thin as the tread on Martin's sneakers. The address turned out to be the high-end auction house he was now standing in, delivering what looked suspiciously like a high-security package. He didn't ask questions. It was one of those places where questions weren't welcome. All he had to do was hand it off, sign the receipt, and leave. Simple. Except nothing was ever simple when Martin was involved. After awkwardly waiting by the receptionist's desk for someone to collect the package, his natural urge to fill the silence with bad jokes kicked in. "So, do you guys sell anything I could afford? Or is it all million-dollar knickknacks? Like, got any used toasters or—" The receptionist didn't even blink. "We sell only the rarest and most valuable artifacts in the galaxy." "Artifacts, huh? Cool, cool. So, like, alien stuff?" "Yes." Martin froze mid-grin. "Wait, seriously?" Before he could process what he'd just heard, one of the bidders, a pompous-looking man with a suit so sharp it could probably cut glass, strolled over and sniffed disdainfully at Martin's scuffed jacket and perpetually messy hair. "What's this? Another Earthling delivery boy?" Martin smiled nervously, gripping the package a little tighter. "Yep, that's me, Earthling delivery boy, here to ruin your day. Nice to meet you." The man sneered. "Do you even know where you are? This auction is for the most discerning collectors in the galaxy, not whatever you are." Martin's brain, ever the masochist, decided this was the perfect moment to go full sarcasm. "Oh, I know exactly where I am, and trust me, I'm totally qualified. I watched like 3 episodes of Star Trek last week, so I'm basically an expert on alien cultures now." The bidder didn't seem to appreciate the joke. His face turned an alarming shade of purple as the woman in the silver cloak stepped forward, her piercing gaze fixed on Martin like he was the most interesting thing in the room. "You are bold," she said, her voice low and melodic. "Or foolish." Martin turned to her, raising an eyebrow. "I get that a lot. Bold and foolish are kind of my whole thing. But, hi, can I help you?" She studied him for a moment, her expression unreadable. "Tell me, Earthling, do you mock everything you don't understand?" "Only the stuff that's terrifying," Martin replied without missing a beat. To his surprise, the woman smiled. It was a small smile, but it was there. The tension in the room shifted slightly as she continued to watch him, her silver cloak catching the light with every movement. Martin, desperate to diffuse the awkwardness, decided to double down on his usual brand of self-deprecating humor. "You know, if you're here to bid on ancient alien artifacts, you should probably avoid talking to me. My most valuable possession is a toaster that only works half the time, and even that's pushing it." He made a dramatic gesture, mimicking some kind of regal salute, intending it as a joke. Unfortunately, the woman's expression shifted instantly. Her smile vanished, replaced by something sharper, almost predatory. The entire room went silent. "What?" Martin asked, glancing around. "What did I do?" The woman stepped closer, her eyes narrowing. "Do you realize what you've just done?" Made a fool of myself. Again. "That gesture," she said, her voice suddenly colder. "It is the formal proposal of marriage in my culture." Martin blinked. "Wait, what?" "I am Queen Cytherea of Zalvona," she continued, as if that explained anything. "And I accept your proposal." For a long moment, Martin just stood there staring at her like she'd grown a second head. Then very quietly he said, "You've got to be kidding me." No one laughed. "Okay, look," Martin said, holding up his hands in surrender. "There's been a huge misunderstanding here. I wasn't proposing to anyone, least of all an alien queen. No offense." "None taken," Cytherea replied smoothly. "But the proposal has been made, and I have accepted. It is done." "It's... what now?" "It is done," she repeated, her tone making it clear this was not up for debate. Martin looked around the room, hoping someone would jump in and explain this was all an elaborate prank. No such luck. He turned back to Cytherea, his voice rising in pitch. "But I can't marry you. I'm just a guy, a delivery guy. I don't even have health insurance." Cytherea tilted her head, her expression softening just slightly. "Your honesty is refreshing, but it changes nothing. You will come with me to Zalvona, and we will formalize the union." Martin gaped at her. "Zalvona? Is that a planet or a furniture store?" Her lips twitched, almost like she was suppressing another smile. "You'll find out soon enough." And with that, Martin Hensley's life was officially turned upside down. Martin Hensley never thought his life would include an impromptu trip to an alien starship, let alone as the accidental fiancé of an intergalactic monarch. And yet here he was, seated in a ridiculously plush chair aboard a spacecraft that looked like it had been designed by a luxury car manufacturer with an unlimited budget. The walls glowed faintly, casting a soft, silvery light, and every surface was smooth, seamless, and impossibly clean. Somewhere in the distance, a gentle hum resonated through the ship, a sound that Martin suspected wasn't mechanical so much as alive. He tried not to think too hard about that. Instead, he focused on the plate of unfamiliar food in front of him. The Zalvonian equivalent of a welcoming snack, it looked like a cross between sushi and jelly beans. Martin poked it cautiously with the alien fork he'd been given, which had an unsettling number of prongs. Cytherea sat across from him, regal as ever, her silver cloak folded neatly over her shoulders. If the strangeness of the situation fazed her at all, she didn't show it. Her posture was perfect, her expression calm, and her piercing blue-green eyes were fixed squarely on him. "You haven't touched your meal," she said, breaking the silence. "I, wasn't sure which part was edible," Martin replied, managing an awkward grin. "Or if any of it was edible, really. Is this like actual food, or is it decorative?" Cytherea raised an elegant eyebrow. "It is entirely edible." "Great," Martin said, though his tone suggested otherwise. He picked up the alien fork and speared a piece that wobbled slightly on impact. "Just so you know, if this kills me, I'm going to haunt you." To his surprise, Cytherea chuckled softly. "I assure you, it is perfectly safe for earthling digestion." Martin popped the morsel into his mouth, bracing for disaster. Instead, he was hit with a burst of flavor that was somehow both sweet and savory, with a hint of citrus and something he couldn't quite place. He blinked. "Okay, that's actually really good. Weird, but good." "I'm pleased you approve," Cytherea said, though her expression suggested she wasn't entirely sure if she should take that as a compliment. For a moment, they ate in relative silence, the atmosphere hovering somewhere between awkward and surreal. Martin kept sneaking glances at Cytherea, trying to wrap his head around the fact that this was his fiancée, or queen fiancée, or whatever the proper term was. She was tall, poised, and intimidatingly beautiful, with a presence that made him feel like a scruffy house cat in the presence of a lion. "So," he said finally, setting his fork down. This whole proposal thing, are we sure there's no way to undo it? Like maybe there's a loophole or something? Zetheria's gaze sharpened slightly. In Zalvonian culture, a formal proposal is a binding agreement. It is not taken lightly. Right, Martin said quickly. But hypothetically, what if one of the people involved was, completely clueless and had no idea what they were doing? Doesn't that count as like grounds for annulment? Her lips curved into a faint smile, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. You underestimate the significance of your actions, Martin Hensley. A proposal is not merely a gesture, it is a promise, one that cannot be undone without dire consequences. Dire consequences, Martin echoed, leaning back in his chair. That's vague and ominous. Can you elaborate? Or is this one of those things where I just have to trust you and hope I don't get vaporized? Your humor is peculiar, Zetheria said, tilting her head slightly. But it is not without merit. Thanks, Martin said, scratching the back of his neck. I think. She studied him for a moment, her expression softening. I understand this is overwhelming for you. It is not customary for an earthling to be thrust into such a role, but you have shown courage, however unintentional it may have been. That is not something to be dismissed. Martin blinked. Courage? Me? I think you've got the wrong guy. I'm just a delivery driver who can't keep his mouth shut. And yet, here you are, Zetheria said simply. Martin opened his mouth to respond, but before he could, a soft chime echoed through the room. Zetheria's attention shifted to the far wall, where a translucent panel flickered to life, displaying a series of intricate symbols that Martin couldn't begin to decipher. Ah, she said, rising gracefully to her feet. We are nearing Zalvonian space. It is time for you to prepare. Prepare for what? Martin asked, his stomach sinking. To meet the royal court, Zetheria replied, as though it were the most obvious thing in the world. Martin groaned, slumping back in his chair. Of course, the royal court, because this situation wasn't stressful enough already. Zetheria regarded him with an expression that was equal parts amusement and pity. You may wish to reconsider your choice of attire, she added, gesturing subtly to his rumpled jacket and faded jeans. Martin glanced down at himself and sighed. Yeah, I figured. Got a royal wardrobe lying around somewhere. Maybe something in my size? Zetheria's lips twitched, and for the briefest moment Martin could have sworn she was trying not to laugh. Follow me, she said, turning toward the doorway. He hesitated for a moment, then got to his feet and followed her, muttering under his breath, worst engagement ever. The rest of the journey passed in a blur of confusion, mild panic, and far too many shiny corridors. By the time they reached Zalvona, Martin's nerves were shot, and he was starting to regret every decision that had led him to this point. The ship descended smoothly onto a massive landing platform that glittered like polished obsidian. Outside, Martin caught glimpses of towering spires, floating gardens, and a sky that shimmered with colors he didn't have names for. Welcome to Zalvona, Zetheria said, her tone carrying a hint of pride. Martin stared out the window, his jaw hanging open. It's beautiful. It is my home, Zetheria said simply. Before Martin could respond, the ship's doors opened, and a flood of alien figures awaited them. Some were humanoid, others less so, and all of them were dressed in elaborate, shimmering garments that made Martin feel even more out of place. As they stepped out onto the platform, the crowd parted to reveal a trio of stern-faced advisors. The one in the center, an older man with silver hair and an air of authority, stepped forward and bowed. Your Majesty, he said, his voice smooth and formal. We have been awaiting your return. His gaze flickered to Martin, and his expression shifted ever so slightly, somewhere between disbelief and disdain. And this, the advisor added, must be the Earthling. Martin gave an awkward wave. Hi. Yep, that's me, the Earthling. Nice to meet you. Zetheria's voice was calm but firm as she addressed her advisors. Prepare the court. There is much to discuss. As they moved forward, Martin leaned closer to Cytherea and whispered, "Just so we're clear, I'm probably going to embarrass you. A lot." To his surprise, she smiled. "I would expect nothing less." Martin Hensley's first impression of the Zalvonian royal court was that it looked like the universe's fanciest aquarium had decided to host a political summit. The grand hall where he stood stretched impossibly high, its walls a kaleidoscope of swirling lights and colors that gave the impression of being submerged underwater. Massive crystal columns shimmered in shades of blue and gold, casting a soft glow on the ornate floor beneath his feet. Around him, dozens of alien dignitaries, courtiers, and guards moved with a precision that made Martin feel like he was crashing an event way out of his league. Which, to be fair, he absolutely was.